Hi, this is Jerry Silverman, and I'm happy to have this opportunity to present SBDC counselors with a specific case study. In this instance, we have been working with this client for about a year and a half while they also worked with their SBDC counselor. I'm sure you've seen many cases similar to this one where the business owner was faced with overwhelming debt and could hardly afford anything to pay their creditors. And this is where a methodical approach to debt restructuring is necessary in order to keep small businesses alive to fight another day. The following is a great story about an Arizona retail store. First, let's listen to the SBDC director's case description.
This client came to the Mojave Community College Small Business Development Center in rural Arizona requesting assistance for an extreme cash flow shortage. They were unable to meet credit card and vendor payments. After looking at their balance sheet, it was evident that credit cards were used to finance an overabundance of inventory. Among counselors' recommendations were inventory liquidation, assessment of items that were necessary to stock, and which ones were special order items. Counselor also recommended, after going through how to pay business debts that you can't afford, that client's debt was overly burdensome and they consider contacting corporate turnaround for assistance.
This client purchased an existing retail business in 2006. As the economy turned down in 2008, she began experiencing real hardships. Over the first few years, she increased the size of her store, the landlord increased the rent dramatically, sales dropped around 50%, and a competitor opened nearby with rock-bottom prices. To keep afloat, she stopped taking a salary, took a second job, and used personal credit cards to buy inventory. The credit card payments and interest increased so much that she had trouble paying her basic utilities and fixed costs. She did not want to declare bankruptcy. We explained how professionally restructuring her debts could help her.
Now let's take a look at the strategies behind the restructuring. This client began by funding as little as we would allow, about 2% a month of what they owed their creditors, the equivalent of an interest payment. Because of the client's minuscule and unpredictable cash flow, one part of our strategy was to settle as slowly as possible. Please keep in mind, the faster debts are settled, the faster they have to be paid back. This puts more strain on cash flow, and that's the opposite of what you're trying to accomplish. The largest creditor, who was owed more than half of all the debt, needed to be kept at bay. If we could do that, we could address and settle with the other creditors. This massive debt was owed to a credit card company that was collecting on its own behalf. 1 month later, after the credit card company received our notice of representation, they offered our client a lump sum settlement of 50 cents on the dollar. The amount that our client could have saved was equivalent to over a year's worth of payments in our program. As irresistible as that sounds, the lump sum payment it required was more than 10 times what our client could afford. The settlement was much too aggressive to accept. After declining this initial offer, we bought a month by discussing the matter in general, and then bought another month by discussing the client's specific hardship. We then made several settlement offers to them, all of which were very conservative. They refused our offers and also made some counter offers to us, but we could not come to terms that were practical and affordable for our client. Several months went by and more time was being bought. Eventually, the account went to a collection agency. After months of negotiating back and forth with the agency, we still could not reach practical and affordable terms. However, while we were negotiating this huge debt, the money that wasn't being used to pay them enabled us to settle with other creditors and pay off other debts. The account was eventually referred to an attorney, which enabled us to buy even more time. 2 months later, still no settlement. The creditor eventually sued our client, but not until we had already bought a year without paying anything to them. And by this time, enough of the other creditors were paid off, which freed up cash flow that enabled us to reach the practical and affordable terms we sought all along. When the settlement was finally reached, it was for 60 cents on the dollar, payable over 26 months, much more affordable than the original 50% lump sum offer a year earlier. including all the time we bought by strategically negotiating. The total time to pay off the debt was 42 months, and the payments were less than 1.5% per month on average, well within the client's 2% budget. If we had settled with the biggest creditor first, it would have decimated our client's cash flow, no matter how good the settlement was. Instead, by negotiating with their largest creditor over an extended period of time and using the delays that are inherent in the creditor's collection process, plus the delays inherent in the legal system, it enabled us to satisfy all their creditors on such a small budget. In order to settle so much debt with so little money, you need a clear strategy and a disciplined plan. You need to know how to deal with the unpredictable actions of creditors, collection agencies, and attorneys. You have to know when to turn down a settlement offer even though it could save you substantial money. Most importantly, you must respect the limitations of the company's cash flow. Let me reiterate. The faster you settle, the faster debts have to be paid back and the more strain there is on cash flow. Also realize that the strategy implemented for this client was based on their unique set of circumstances and would not be appropriate for other companies. Restructuring is not an exercise in saving money as much as it is an exercise in preserving as much cash flow as possible while keeping the creditors from putting you out of business. Here are the results we've obtained so far. 18 months into the restructuring, they have funded about $33,000 out of the $44,000 they were supposed to. Despite inconsistent and insufficient funding, we've still managed to save them $57,000 out of the $126,000 they owed, and creditors are being paid in a timely manner. Specifically, 4 out of the 6 debts have been restructured. 2 of those creditors have already received their settlements, and the other 2 are in the midst of long-term, affordable, interest-free payment plans. Another creditor has apparently walked away from the debt. They haven't made any attempt to collect their money in over 6 months. Our strategy with this creditor is to let a sleeping dog lie. And in keeping with our strategy, the final matter is still being negotiated. Thank you for taking the time to watch our presentation. The strategies we've shared with you are complex and sometimes counterintuitive. Do not expect to become an expert in commercial debt restructuring overnight. If you would like additional materials on debt restructuring, such as the 27 biggest mistakes to avoid, or our do-it-yourself guide called How to Pay Business Debts You Can't Afford, contact Charles Evans at 800-411-1113. Thank you.